So the religion is called Islam, and for the remainder of today's lecture I'll be outlining its most palpable, salient features. And I say palpable because there are, as I indicated earlier, some hidden spiritual dimensions of the faith which not all Muslims may have attained. There's a very famous hadith, quite possibly the best known of all hadiths, called the Hadith of Gabriel, in which the Prophet states this quite explicitly. I've circulated a translation of this in the handouts, and at the risk of gobbling up quite a bit of time, I think it would actually be good for us to read this out, because it is so fundamental. Any volunteers to read it, to give my vocal cords a rest? Yes, John?
I'll take the first paragraph, and for you want me to do
Fine. Or do the whole thing, as you please.
Umar ibn al-Khattab said, "One day, when we were with God's messenger, we were visited by a man whose garments were exceedingly white and whose hair was exceedingly black, upon whom no signs of travel could be seen. Sitting before the Prophet, leaning his knees against his and placing his hands on his thighs, he said, 'Tell me, Muhammad, about Islam.' The Prophet replied, 'Islam is that you should bear witness that there is no deity but God, and that Muhammad is God's messenger, that you should establish the prayer, pay the zakat, fast in Ramadan, and make the Hajj to the house if you are able to go.' The man said, 'You have spoken truly.' And we were amazed that he should question him and then confirm that he had spoken the truth. He then said, 'Tell me about faith.' Iman. He replied, 'Faith means that you believe in God, His angels, His books, His messengers, and the last day, and that you have faith in the decree, both its good and its evil.' The man said, 'You have spoken truly.' He then said, 'Tell me about excellence.' Ihsan. And he replied, 'Excellence means that you should worship God as if you see Him. For even if you do not see Him, He sees you.' Then the man said, 'Tell me about the hour.' The Prophet replied, 'Concerning that, the one who is questioned knows no more than the questioner.' The man said, 'Tell me then of its four tokens.' He said, 'The slave girl will give birth to her mistress, and you will behold the barefoot, the naked, the destitute, and the shepherds vying with each other in the construction of tall buildings.' Then the man departed. After I had waited for a long time, the Prophet asked me, 'Do you know who the questioner was, Umar?' I replied, 'God and His messenger know best.' He said, 'That was Gabriel, who came to teach you your religion.'"
This is, as I say, possibly the best known of all hadith, and even little kids in Arab countries particularly will know it off by heart. In the hadith, what you can see is that the Prophet, who, like all the founders of the great world religions, was an excellent teacher, is explaining in a systematic, easy to understand fashion the three dimensions of Muslim experience. He also hints at a fourth, the eschatological, the end time prophecy which comes towards the end, which I'm not going to talk about today because I think Dr. Jackson, inshallah, will be addressing it in due course. So what the hadith says is there are three dimensions to the religion. There is Islam, outer practice, the forms, the regulations, the system of worship. There is Iman, which means faith, the belief system, sincerely held. And then there is a third thing, which the Prophet refers to as Ihsan, which means excellence, but in this hadith is clearly defined as spiritual excellence. So in other words, the hadith is making the point that the religion has a dimension proper to the body, to the mind, and to the heart. Now it's easy to see why they should come in this order. From practice, in other words, what we do with the physical body, the easiest bit in religion, we pass on to faith, which dwells in the mind, and thence we pass on to the spiritual life, which exists in the heart. These are progressively more difficult, and while many Muslims achieve outward conformity to the sunnah, the normative practices of the religion, fewer achieve proper, untroubled belief, and still fewer can reach to high spiritual degrees and hope to achieve sainthood. Today I shall be confining myself to a discussion of the first of these 3 degrees, and in my next lecture tomorrow I'll be tackling the other 2. So in the Hadith, the Prophet explains that the first, most basic degree is Islam, submission, safety. In another famous Hadith, the Prophet defines Islam in this sense as a set of outward activities. The Hadith, again I've circulated a copy, is Islam is built on 5 pillars. It is to bear witness that there is no deity but God, and that Muhammad is God's messenger, that you should establish the prayer, salat, pay the zakat, fast in Ramadan, and make the Hajj to the house, i.e. the Kaaba, if you are able to go. And these are the so-called 5 pillars of Islam. And the metaphor indicates that these things do not constitute the essence of the religion, but merely its necessary supports and foundations. So let's take a look at these one by one.